He was sentenced to 19 years in prison just for stealing a piece of bread. During those 19 years, he endured humiliation, and when the day of his release finally came, the warden deliberately made things difficult for him, demanding that he drag a mast weighing hundreds of pounds by himself. It was an impossible task for anyone else, but by chance, he possessed extraordinary strength and managed to lift the mast, throwing it down forcefully in front of the warden. Seeing that his harassment was ineffective, the warden could only produce the release order. However, what Jean Valjean did not expect was that this release order stated he was an extremely dangerous individual and required to report his whereabouts to a designated police station regularly. If he failed to do so even once, he would be arrested and imprisoned again. Jean Valjean was filled with rage. He had stolen that piece of bread because his young nephew was about to starve to death, and he had already paid 19 years of his life for that piece of bread. Wasn't that enough? However, in the eyes of the warden, once a criminal, always a thief. He felt it was his duty to uphold the justice in his heart and protect those who obey the law. Left with no choice, Jean Valjean could only leave with a heart full of resentment, but even after escaping from prison, he had merely entered another cage. He wandered in search of work, but no one was willing to hire a dangerous individual. The adults humiliated him in every possible way, and even the children followed suit, laughing and mocking him in the streets. By nightfall, the innkeeper refused to let him sleep in the stable, fearing he would dirty his place. In the biting cold and hunger, he could only brave the wind and snow to find a corner in a graveyard to rest. Just as he settled down, an old man suddenly appeared before him. It turned out that this was not a graveyard, but a church. The kind priest brought him inside, prepared food and clothing for him, and offered him a warm bed. However, Jean Valjean had suffered so much in life that he could hardly believe anyone could be so selfless. He even doubted the old man's intentions. In this sense, he hurriedly stole all the silverware and left, but he hadn't run far before he was caught by the local police, with the evidence in hand. Jean Valjean knew he couldn't escape from Javert. However, he never expected that the priest would tell the police that the silverware was a gift he had willingly given to Jean Valjean. The priest even brought out a pair of the most expensive candlesticks, saying that Jean Valjean had left in such a hurry that he forgot to take these two items. With no other choice, the police had to let Jean Valjean go. After they left, the priest meaningfully advised him to make good use of these precious silverware and to become a good and upright person. Deeply moved by this great kindness, Jean Valjean was left in shock. It turned out that this world was not completely rotten, and he could hardly believe that he had become a thief, fleeing like a lost dog after committing theft. He wondered if he had truly fallen into the abyss, realizing too late that he had lost nearly 20 years for a piece of bread. Just when he was filled with extreme hatred for this world, the priest touched his soul once again. He learned what love is, and in gratitude and self-reproach, he tore up the release document that symbolized his identity as a thief, vowing to completely let go of the past and start a new life. 8 years passed in the blink of an eye, and by this time, Jean Valjean had assumed the name Madeleine. With the silverware from those years, he transformed himself and entered high society, not only establishing a textile factory with hundreds of female workers, but also being elected mayor of the small town. On this day, the female workers were ganging up to bully a worker named Fantine. Argon wanted to mediate, but when he looked up, he saw the newly appointed police chief. Coincidentally, this person was none other than the former warden, Javert. Jean Valjean was extremely frightened and instructed the foreman to properly resolve the conflict among the women, while he mustered the courage to approach Javert. After many years, Javert did not recognize that the superior before him was actually his fugitive. But for some inexplicable reason, it felt a bit familiar. Just then, a scream came from outside. The two of them rushed downstairs to see a cart overturned on the ground, with an elderly man trapped underneath. Jean Valjean once again sprang into action, lifting the heavily loaded cart with ease. Witnessing this scene, they were momentarily shocked. They had only seen such extraordinary strength in one other person.